My disengaged Lono had been totally unaware of my ku's screaming signals of increasing tension and dehydration. The boys had gone off to a waterfall, and it took me a half hour of carefully talking my ku back toward recovery before I could even reach my canteen. There are no hard and fast rules for how long you can stay disengaged without undue tension, because we all differ in metabolism and motivation. The best test is how you feel. A healthy period of disengagement will produce a good feeling when you get back. If spiritual alienation has been a problem, conscious engagement with physical activity, people, or the land will be very helpful, and the practice of blessing will help you with that. Autism is a special case because in this condition, a person has turned so far away from the world that he or she usually needs outside help to get back. The symptoms usually range from a refusal to speak or participate in activities, to a refusal to even acknowledge people or surroundings, to a total obliviousness of them. There may also be rhythmic, apparently purposeless movement. The most productive solution seems to be unconditional love, and I would recommend the books of Barry Kaufman for anyone with concerns in this area. But in some cases, all it takes is a little bit of love. One of my students was a grade school teacher who had a student herself who might have been described as borderline autistic. The girl didn't speak and didn't participate. She just sat quietly from the time she was delivered to school to the time she was picked up, and wouldn't even respond to the teacher's attention. Because of the limited amount of time the teacher could spend with each student, I suggested that she simply sit with a girl for 2 minutes out of every class, duplicating the position, expression, and any movement the girl made as best she could, and end each 2-minute period by touching the girl gently and saying, "Thank you." By the end of 3 weeks, the girl was conversing, smiling, and beginning to participate in class. Kahi, the touch of magic. Hawaiian tradition has a system of bodywork called lomi lomi. It is usually considered a system of massage, but it has elements that resemble Swedish and Esalen massage, rolfing, acupressure, and polarity therapy, plus some things that don't resemble anything else. For the first time, I am writing in detail about one of these other things, a rarely taught process that I have been sharing in my shaman courses for several years. I think it is one of the most useful things I have ever learned or that I teach. The process is called Kahi, which means oneness, and also refers to a lomi lomi technique using very light hand or finger pressure. Some of my Hawaiian friends learned it differently than I did, but the way I was taught, what the mind is doing during Kahi is more important than what the hands are doing. The 8 centers and 4 corners of the body. In traditional Hawaiian healing, the 8 centers of the body are the crown, chest, navel, pubic bone, the palms of the hands, and the soles of the feet, while the 4 corners are the shoulders and hips. I was also given the 7th cervical vertebra, the bump at the bottom of the base of the neck, and the coccyx as additional centers, making 14 in all. Each of these is considered in Kahi as a power center, or source of energy, somewhat like the Oriental chakra. To practice Kahi, you put the fingers or palm of one hand, it doesn't matter which, on a power center, and those of the other hand on a release point, an area of the body with tension, pain, injury, or some other condition of disharmony. In some cases, this might even be another power center. So for a headache, you might put the fingers of one hand lightly on the place of pain, and the fingers of the other hand on the navel or the base of the spine. Or for a stomach ache, you might put one hand gently over the stomach, and the other hand on the back of the neck or on one of the person's palms. Then, and here is the important part, you focus your attention on both hands at once while you do deep breathing. Until you get practiced at such a dual focus, you can shift attention quickly between hands or imagine something like a rainbow connecting them. To further help keep the attention focused, I usually teach a Hawaiian chant in my course based on the 7 principles. But since I can't help you now with pronunciation, I'll give you the following chant in English, which is also based on the principles. Be aware, be free, be focused, be here, be loved, be strong, be healed. Use whatever rhythm and tone you like. The chant will serve the dual purpose of helping your focus and giving suggestions to the coup. However, The main effect comes from the dual focus on both hands. In Kahi, you do not try to send your energy into the person's body, nor do you try to be a channel for energy with your breathing or your mind. All you do is hold the focus. Because of the third principle, the focus itself intensifies and harmonizes the energy in the body you are working on. I can't emphasize this too strongly because so many people want to control the process or the energy with their lono. You don't have to. The energy knows exactly what to do, and the ku knows how to respond. This is a technique that also teaches trust. Use your lono to hold the focus and let the rest happen by itself. When you have taken 3 or 4 complete deep breaths, check your body or that of the person you are helping for feedback. If the condition has changed for the better, you are finished. If not, you have the option of continuing. What happens in Kahi is that the focus on the hands induces a flow of energy between them, much like the flow of electricity in a wire. The effect of this flow in Kahi is twofold. First, it increases the intensity of your personal energy field, and second, it stimulates the release and relaxation portion of the stress cycle, resulting in an easing of tension and a harmonizing of the area at and between the hands. When you apply your hands to someone else's body, the same thing happens to both of you. In line with the second principle, when you use Kahi for someone else, you are healing yourself at the same time. The specific effects are these. 1. Relaxation of muscle tension, an easing of pain, and stimulation of the body's healing process at the release point. This may be accompanied by sensations of warmth and/or tingling. 2. Sometimes an apparent shift of pain to a new site. Experience indicates that this is actually uncovering a new layer of pain that was masked by the first one. Continue on the new area as you did with the previous one. 3. Sometimes no change of condition at all, even after several rounds or sessions of Kahi. A round is a Kahi focus that lasts for 3 or 4 cycles of deep breathing. A session is any length of Kahi application separated in time from another such application. This may happen when the source of stress is primarily resistance due to anger or fear. While a more intensified focus might break through such resistance, it is recommended to use a technique more directly related to changing the emotions or the memory patterns that generate them. Such techniques will be discussed later in the book. 4. Sometimes a recurrence of the condition after the Kahi session. This is due to a renewal of the same thinking patterns that caused the condition in the first place. Kahi is only an aid to healing that works by changing the state of the body from tension to relaxation. Cures come from changing the mind. 5. Frequently, sensations of movement, warmth, and/or tingling under the hands of the person doing the Kahi. Also, it is common to feel more refreshed after doing Kahi. Because you are not trying to control or force energy, you don't get tired doing it. As implied, you can do Kahi on yourself or someone else. I found that the effects are best when you follow the general practice of using the farthest, most convenient power center from the release point. Thus, if working on someone's upper back, I would use a palm center, the coccyx center, or the navel center. I don't suggest using the pubic center unless with an intimate friend, rather than a shoulder, chest, or neck center. If the 2 areas of focus are too close, the flow is lessened. And if they are too far apart, the strain of reaching will increase your own tension. This is not a rule, just a guideline, because there are times when you might want the 2 points to be close or far for some reason of your own. You will also find that Kahi is a wonderful alternative to acupressure and reflexology. Without diminishing the worth of those valuable systems, I must say it is a pleasure to do them painlessly. The way to do this is to combine the Kahi power centers with any tender acupressure or reflexology points. On the feet, you can work from the center of the sole of one foot to the tender point on the other foot. Press the points just enough to discover tenderness, and then ease off and keep a light touch while you focus. After 1 round, check the point again for tenderness. Mutual Kahi. An excellent way to calm someone down, lift someone's spirits, do cooperative healing, or establish deep rapport is to do mutual Kahi. When you are working one-on-one, two great variations are: 1. Face your partner with your left palm up and your right palm down. Touch palms with your partner and curl your fingers in so you are lightly gripping each other's fingers. Then both begin Kahi by focusing on your own hands while silently chanting. 2. Place your right palm or fingers on your own navel and your left palm or fingers on the chest or forehead of your partner, while your partner does the same, touching his or her navel and your chest or forehead. Focus on your own hands and chant while you breathe. Among other things you may notice, after several rounds, is a tendency to lose track of where you physically end and your partner begins. This doesn't happen to everyone right away, but it's a sign of the blending of personal energy fields, of moving into oneness. If you do this a lot with someone, you will find yourself developing a deep friendship and considerable telepathic rapport. Group Kahi. Just as electrical power can be increased by placing batteries in a series, healing power can be increased by placing people in a series. The following two variations work very well. 1. Sit or stand in a circle with whomever wants to be worked on, included as part of the circle. Hold hands and all do Kahi together. Sometimes there's a greater group effect if you do the chant out loud. If you want to add a bit of ritual, you can have everyone hold hands with the left palm up and the right palm down. It isn't necessary, but some people like it. 2. Everyone in the group stands in a line, curved if you like, with one hand on their own navel and the other hand lightly touching the neck center of the person in front of them, and they all do Kahi together. The first person in the line applies Kahi in the normal way to someone who wants help.
Her knowledge of horticulturalism and its role in various
Suffice to say that using the hands for Kahi isn't absolutely necessary, since it's the focus that does the work. What the hands mainly do is help you focus, but a lot of people need that help, and a lot of people heal better when they are touched. Nevertheless, there may be times when knowing that a clear and sharp mental focus may work just as well will be very useful, such as 1. When the release point of a person you're working with is too sensitive to touch or is in a delicate area of the anatomy. You can hold your hand a few inches above the point or just use your mind to focus on that point. 2. When you want to work on yourself and both hands are occupied. I had to do this once when I got a Charlie horse while driving a car. 3. When you want to help someone else nearby, but doing Kahi openly is not practical or advisable. Distant will be discussed in the next chapter. Kaulike, another magic term. Kaulike means balance or harmony and refers to an extremely simple way to help someone feel good. It's possible to do it on yourself, but it always works better when someone else does it, because it's a way of sharing love and friendship. Essentially, it consists of lightly touching a person's body while they are standing, sitting, or lying down. When done with the right attitude on the part of both giver and receiver, it feels amazingly nice. The right attitude is simply one of willingly giving and receiving. The beauty of Kaulike is that it requires no thinking by Lono at all, not even the focus of Kahi. First, stand in front of the receiver and touch him or her with the fingers of alternating hands for about the length of 2 heartbeats on the crown, throat, chest, solar plexus, and navel. Then use both hands on either side of the body and touch in turn the jaws, shoulders, elbows, wrists, hips, knees, ankles, and toes. Finish by raising your arms out to your sides and above your head, and sweeping your hands palm outward down in front of the receiver to about hip level. That's it. There isn't any second step. You don't have to think or chant or breathe deeply or do anything except touch and sweep. Now, we'll go on to working more with the mind, but always in partnership with the body. The fifth adventure. Initiating change through intuition. Kapo nui o olako lako. Ke au nui o ohima hima. The inner world provides. The outer world ignores. Shamans do not teach intuition. They assume it. It's a function as natural as breathing, and it follows logically from the first three principles. Intuition is one important way in which the world becomes what we think it is. It is one of the ways in which everything is connected, and it is carried by the energy that flows where attention goes. However, just as breathing can be developed into a refined skill, so can intuition. Let me explain here at the beginning that I am using the word intuition in both an active and a passive sense, and as an alternative to the words telepathy and clairvoyance. First of all, intuition generally refers to information or knowledge gained through any of the inner senses of seeing, hearing, and feeling, plus sometimes smelling, and rarely tasting, whereas telepathy has the usual connotation of something active and verbal, and clairvoyance usually means something passive and visual.
Great is the weapon that cuts on its
Secondly,
own.
just as in the outer world, inner knowledge and information can be given as well as received.
Gently.
So how does
This
intuition
is how
work?
a life is taken.
For an explanation, we have to use a metaphor, because we are not describing a physical thing that can be separated into pieces with its parts all named. This is what drives first-level scientists batty. The evidence for intuition, the exchange of data without physical intervention or proximity, is unquestionable if you don't choose to ignore it. Yet it doesn't seem to have a physical basis. Since the physical world is a product of the non-physical world, according to shaman thinking, a physical basis may or may not ever be found. To such researchers, I recommend an observation of C.W. Ledbetter.
A victim
It is
to
the commonest of
spreading
mistakes to consider that the limit of our power to perceive is also the limit of all there is to perceive. On to the metaphor. One good, often used, and previously mentioned metaphor is the web, also called the
Finding
aka.
the stuff is only the first
Aka
test.
is a Hawaiian word
Now it
meaning
must be
essence or
carried
shadow,
home.
and also refers to the idea of a non-physical web of threads connecting everything in the universe. Frequently made connections with emotional content are sometimes
The match
referred to
is
as
struck.
cords or even
A blazing
cables.
star is born.
One could say that, whereas most people are bound by cords to their outer life on the planet Earth until the moment of death, shamans seek to be connected by threads to everything all the time. Using the web metaphor, we can see that the connections of the web always exist, but specific threads are only activated by conscious attention. That is, intuition occurs, information is transferred whenever you think of or become aware of something. In a typical example, you think of a friend, and that friend calls you soon after. Now, the thought of the friend might have carried a suggestion or desire that he or she responded to, or the friend might have been thinking of you prior to the call and you perceived it. Either way, it could be explained by information transfer along the web. Another useful metaphor suitable for modern urban shamans is the signal effect. In this one, everything in the universe is broadcasting its own signal, much like a television station.
Glittering
And everything
gold,
is also a
trinkets and
receiver.
baubles.
Each signal is a
Paid
combination
for
of
in
frequencies that broadcasts all the information there is about the signal source, but each receiver is only designed to pick up a certain range of frequencies, like a radio station that can pick up audio signals from a television station, but cannot pick up the visual, or a TV that only receives certain channels. Metaphorically speaking, your perception of another person's broadcast signal is limited by your attunement with that person. The closer the attunement, the more you pick up. The less the attunement, the more you miss. Attunement is done on purpose with conscious awareness or attention, either passively to receive information or actively to send it, and by default through similarities of beliefs held in coup memory. Specific sending to or receiving from an individual is like a communication between a transmitter and receiver set in a specific and narrow range of frequencies. Static can occur externally from other signals near the same range, or internally from slippage and interference. Interpret that as losing focus or having doubt and or receiving criticism. This is a great metaphor because it can explain so many intuitive phenomena. A third metaphor, useful for the mystically inclined, is the field effect. In this case, since the universe is infinite, you are infinite. If you are infinite, you are everywhere. If you are everywhere, then you can be aware of anything and influence anything by putting your attention on it. The key to this one, then, is purity of intent and clarity of focus. Should anyone ask what intuition really is, it's what you think it is. Shamans use intuition for gathering information about the past, present, or future in preparation for healing activity or for healing itself. We'll be discussing a number of tools and techniques for doing this, but a little more discussion is necessary so you can use it effectively.
Masterfully
Most important of all is the idea that, following the fourth principle, you cannot tune into the past or future even if you want to, because the present moment is the only reality. If you go to a professional psychic and ask for a reading, he or she will usually start by telling you about your past, then about your present, and then about your future. According to the point of view presented here, the psychic is not really tuning into your past, but only to your memories, conscious or not, of the past, which you are presently broadcasting, to use that metaphor. Likewise, he or she is picking up memories and thoughts about your current concerns when telling you about your present, and is tuning into a logical projection of your current patterns and inclinations when telling you about your future. Note that I am not saying this is a conscious effort on the part of the psychic. Most are simply turning the matter over to Ku and Kane with an internal process that goes, in effect, like this. Okay, fellas, give me some information about this person's past, present, and future. Then, the psychic waits for words, pictures, or symbols and feelings to arise, interprets them consciously if necessary, and gives the information to you. A good psychic is usually pretty accurate about the past, reasonably accurate about your present, and woefully inaccurate about your future. This is partly because the information has to be filtered through the psychic's own system, and partly because you are constantly changing your mind about your own past, present, and future, and you also probably have some memory blocks and conflicting ideas. Assuming the shaman concept that we are creating our future as we go along, you can imagine the difficulty a psychic has in sorting out a meaningful assessment from the mass of frequently conflicting and muddled information that you and those presently or potentially connected to you are broadcasting.
Annihilated.
It's amazing that they do as well as they do. Admittedly, psychics sometimes come up with information about the future that actually turns out that way, but that is usually when they tune into a present pattern of strong habits, strong suggestibility, or strong determination. Most of the time, because we change so much, they are either completely inaccurate or only partially accurate. I once visited a highly reputed psychic in Southern California for a reading. Her reading of my past was quite insightful. Her reading of my present brought several things to my conscious attention that I hadn't noticed, and her reading of my future was very mixed. She tuned in well to my plan for public speaking, which I hadn't begun at that time, and she accurately timed the meeting and described the appearance of a man I couldn't physically connect with for 6 more months. However, she also described him as one who would be an important teacher in my life. As it turned out, we became good friends and shared some knowledge, but he never played a teacher role for me. If my state at the time of the reading hadn't changed, though, he might very well have played such a role. Finally, she delighted me by saying I would eventually move to the French Riviera and live there 6 months and travel 6 months. That never happened, of course, but that reading may have been a mixed expression of my past experience in the French-speaking African city of Dakar, which resembles the Riviera a lot, and my desire to live in Hawaii and travel the world from there. In spite of promotional hype, psychics are rarely more than 30% accurate in their overall predictions, and 50% is guessing. The problem has to do with static from the psychic's own desires and stresses, as well as from the fact that people change their minds. The Earth changes its mind even more often, apparently, because the one thing psychics are worst at predicting, not counting alien encounters, is earthquakes. I have only run across one psychic whose predictive percentage ranged consistently from 90 to 98%. However, this was because of the infrequency and the method of his predictions. The psychic in question was Jack Smith, a columnist for the Los Angeles Times. His method was to wait for the National Enquirer's annual issue of predictions by famous psychics for the coming year. Then, next to each of the famous psychics' predictions, he would write, "This won't happen." He was outstandingly accurate. If we're not really tuning into the past or the future, and what we do pick up is only memories or possibilities, why bother to turn our intuition in those directions at all? Why not just work on extending it to the present? Precisely because intuition of the extended present can give us valuable information about inhibiting ideas we still hold about the past, as well as present patterns that may lead to a future we don't want.
The sharpened blade.
We can use intuition to understand ourselves and others better, to change our ideas and therefore the effects of the past, and to change the future by changing current patterns. Hailona, creative intuition. Hailona refers to the art of casting for divination, which is an old word for tuning into intuition. Casting itself is a technique for making intuitive information available to the conscious mind. The basic process is one of consciously focusing on a question and then letting the inner self, the Ku/Kane combo, give you the answer through some kind of arrangement of signs and symbols.
Without kindling.
In most cases, the meanings of the signs, symbols, and arrangement pattern have been worked out beforehand. Some commonly used casting methods are the tossing of coins for the I Ching and the dealing out of tarot cards. The concept taught in the shaman system is that the inner self gathers the information desired through the web, broadcast, or field and manipulates the signs and symbols in such a way that the arrangement pattern gives you the closest answer possible for the method chosen. In an I Ching reading, you could say that the Ku gathers the information desired through intuition, and then, taking into account gravity, air resistance, muscle strength, and surface friction, releases the coins in a way that gives a meaningful pattern. In the next few sections, I will describe an old Hawaiian casting method, a modified African method, and a highly flexible method of my own invention built on ancient models. Oi Pahu. The name of this method used in Old Hawaii means odd-even or successful-unsuccessful. It is used when you want to determine the outcome of an event or a venture. First, you lay out 2 pieces of cloth, handkerchiefs will do, or 2 bowls, and designate one as representing yourself and the other as representing the person, place, event, or venture you are concerned with. Then you relax your body, focus on the question of success, and out of a pile of stones or marbles, you take a random handful with each hand and place them under the cloths or in the bowls. Finally, you count the stones or marbles out by twos.
The path is clear.
Count yours out first to save time, because if you end up with an even amount, forget it. No matter what's in the other pile, this is a sign of failure. If your pile has one left over, odd, and the other pile is also odd, this is also supposed to be a sign of failure. However, I think this is overly pessimistic. The original thinking was that you both couldn't win. Oi, odd, also means successful, that 2 odds canceled each other out. On the other hand, if you accept a win-win philosophy, this outcome could mean success for both sides. The last result, in which your pile is odd and the other is even, is a definite sign of your success. Remember always, though, that the information you receive has nothing to do with the future. It is a reading of the probable outcome of your present attitudes and plans. Change those, and you can change the results. The 16 Eyes of Fa. Ages ago, among the Fawn people of Dahomey, now called Benin in West Africa, where I lived for 2.5 years, a system of divination based on legend was developed that is still in use today. The legend had to do with the god Fa, creator of mankind and messenger of the great gods, who had 16 eyes in the form of palm nuts that opened every morning so he could look out and prophesy. Doing this divination is called opening the eyes of Fa. It is an odd-even method, but the original process has been simplified by me for easier modern use. It now consists of relaxing and focusing on your question, then tossing a coin. Heads equals even, tails equals odd, or a die 4 times and noting the odds and evens. An odd toss is represented in the chart by 1 dot and an even toss by 2 dots. It helps develop your intuition because you have to think of different ways in which the single word answer can apply to your question, and then choose the interpretation that feels right. As an example, if you asked whether you or your lover would still be together next year and got 4 odds in a row, the answer would be union, which would be rather obvious. But if you got 2 odds, an even, and an odd, giving the answer weakness, you'd have to think about the strength of your relationship or the strength of your desire, or the motivation behind your question. Shaman Stones. This method, which is in 3 parts, is what I teach in my courses. It uses a total of 7 stones, which don't have to be stones at all. I generally give out 7 plastic beads, colored white, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, and red. Students who like the method often buy or make a more personal set afterward. Semi-precious gemstones are popular, as are water-worn basalt stones dabbed with colored paint. And for my blind students, I have recommended bracelet charms. If you like crystals, a nice set can be made from clear quartz, rhodochrosite or rose quartz, carnelian, citrine, malachite or aventurine, turquoise or sodalite, and amethyst or purple fluorite. The best size is not more than a ½ inch in diameter. In the discussion that follows, I will assume you have a set of stones in the colors mentioned. The yes-no technique. Use only the white stone, the red stone, and the green stone for this one. The white stone is called kumu, the foundation stone, and the others are ao, answering stones. This means that the answer comes from the stone that falls nearest the white, on either side of it. In this technique, the red stones mean no, and the green stone means yes. You relax and ask any question you like that can be answered yes or no. Be careful of should questions though. Should I do this or that? Because should relates to standards or rules, and your coup often has memories of more than one set, which makes the question ambiguous. Regardless of the reason, such questions tend to be less effective. When you are ready, hold the stones in your hand and toss them out in front of you. If you ask test questions, you may get static from the implied doubt. The only difference between professional psychics and the rest of the population is that the psychics tend to trust their answers. Stress factors aside, the more you trust, the more accurate the responses. Remember too that your answers are only telling you about your coup and your patterns, and they may not have anything to do with the situation as others perceive it, or as it may actually turn out. You may ask about anything you like, but this technique is particularly good for discovering attitudes and beliefs at the coup level, and for getting information on your subconscious perceptions of other people and situations. In asking questions about matters that really concern you, you may find a desire to immediately toss again when you don't like the answer. I suggest that you don't, because that tends to stimulate fear and suppression. Instead, I recommend the following process. The secret shaman process for getting the answer you want. 1. Get an answer from the stones that you don't like. 2. Acknowledge the answer as representing a current pattern. 3. Forcefully grab the 2 answering stones and reverse their position, shouting as you do, "This is the new pattern coup. Remember it." The forcefulness, the shout, and the physical movement will make a strong sensory impression on the coup and help to establish a new pattern with better results. The advice technique. Use all 7 stones for this. The white is still the kumu, although it is presented in the list of meanings with the ao stones. White equals first principle, keyword awareness. Red equals second principle, keyword freedom. Orange equals third principle, keyword focus. Yellow equals fourth principle,
Monstrous
keyword
size
persistence.
has no intrinsic
Green
merit,
equals fifth principle,
unless
keyword
inordinate
love.
exsanguination be
Blue
considered
equals
a
sixth
virtue.
principle, keyword confidence. Violet equals seventh principle, keyword flexibility. When you are ready, relax and focus on a request for advice like, what's the best way for me to get what I want? Or, what's the best thing for me to do in this situation? Remember that this technique does not answer yes or no. Then toss the stones and read the one closest to the white.
A trifling
Use a combination
victory,
of the principle and the key
but a
word
victory
to derive an
nonetheless.
answer to your question. It is in the nature of divination for the answers to require as much intuition as the questions. In a variation, instead of advice on a particular matter, ask for a plan of action, deciding beforehand the number of stones you wish to be part of your answer. For instance, if you asked, give me a 3-step plan of action for increasing my income, and you got the orange, red, and green stones in that order nearest the white, the answer could be read as, clarify your goals, get rid of guilt, and do what you love. That's simplified, of course, because in actuality, you would probably get a lot more ideas around each one. Or instead of asking for advice or a plan, ask, what's in the way of achieving my goal? Toss the stones and read the answer from the one nearest the white, only this time, read it in its opposite sense. Red equals mental or physical stress. Orange equals lack of focus. Yellow equals procrastination. Green equals anger. Blue equals fear or doubt. Violet equals rigid thinking. Picture casting. This is one of the greatest secrets of shamanic divination there is. Imagine an anthropologist on a tropical island watching the village shaman toss out shells and bones and stones and then give a long reading. Time after time, the scientist watches the shaman cast, and still he can't figure out the meaning of the objects or the structure of the pattern. And he doesn't believe it when the shaman tells him there isn't any, unless he finally dismisses the shaman as a fraud. What is the shaman doing? He's looking at pictures. In my opinion, this is the highest form of the divining art because it stimulates the deepest intuition through symbols and associations. To use it with your stones, relax and ask for a picture to represent the current or future state of a person, place, thing, situation, or condition. Then toss all 7 stones without regard to which is Kumu or Eo. When the stones are cast, look at the stones without any effort. What does the pattern look like or remind you of? You might imagine the stones are like dots in a children's book and try to connect them in different ways with imaginary lines. Although we call it a picture, sometimes the main sense comes from feeling. You might just gaze at it and be aware of what associations or memories come to mind. If it feels appropriate, you can take into account the meanings of the stones that were given in the last technique. For some people, this technique will be a snap, but others will have to practice it for a while before the barriers to this kind of perception fall down. If, no matter what you try, the pattern still doesn't tell you anything, thank your coup for trying. Tell it to give you a different picture about the same thing, and toss again. You can also use the pattern-changing process given in the first technique for this one, if you don't like the picture. This can even work as a distant healing process if you ask for a picture of someone else's condition. In this case, you forcefully include or change the picture by moving the stones around. La'akea, the light of love. Because of the web, the broadcast, or the field, take your pick. Everything influences everything else, but not to the same degree. A valid observation we can make is that the coup is influenced most by the strongest, nearest, most resonant field. A field is an area of influence, like a magnetic field, or perception, like a visual field. Here, we are mostly concerned with influence, and mostly with the human energy field, also called the aura, or hawaka in Hawaiian. The human energy field has both physical and non-physical components, but for the moment, we'll treat it as a single entity. It will also be helpful to note that energy itself is properly defined as influential movement or activity. That is, movement or activity that creates change. It could also be called influential vibration. Another thing to note is that energy is not a tangible thing, but tangible things have energy. Therefore, a reduction or lessening of energy is equivalent to slowing the rate of vibration, not taking away anything tangible. And an increase of energy is equivalent to speeding up the rate of vibration, not adding anything tangible. Increasing energy is not like adding a cup of water to a cake mix. It's like increasing the speed of the mixer. Resonance has 2 meanings applicable to the human energy field. One, related to electricity, is the condition of adjustment of a circuit that allows the greatest flow of current of a certain frequency. In human terms, this means that the state of the mind and body determines what kind of energies will most influence it. Simply put, whatever fear you have will resonate to or be influenced by additional fear around you, and whatever confidence you have will be more resonant to additional confidence. This is why the most important first step in any healing by an urban shaman is to build up a person's confidence. Of course, because of the 3rd and 6th principles, you can consciously choose to shift your own attention to whatever confidence you possess, and thus tune in more to the influence of confidence around you and diminish the influence of fear. The other meaning of resonance from physics is the reinforced vibration of a body exposed to the vibration at about the same frequency of another body. Speaking in human terms, this means that your fear will tend to increase the fear of those around you, and your confidence will tend to increase the confidence of those around you. Proximity and strength of human energy fields are closely related because, generally speaking, the closer you are to the source of the field, the stronger, more energized it usually is. Your aura extends infinitely, but your mental and sensory attention usually do not. Due to the third principle, then, your effective field might be quite different from your actual field. Also, frequency considerations aside, human beings tend to be more influenced by physical energies perceived through the physical senses, sight, sound, touch, etc., than by mental energies perceived through the mental senses. So proximity is an important influential factor. Strength of a field has to do with energy intensity, which has to do with vibration. The quality of vibration has two components, frequency and amplitude, or put another way, rate and intensity. Using ocean waves as an example, the number of waves in a 100-yard stretch would determine the frequency of the waves. The size of each wave would determine the amplitude. Obviously, there would be more energy in 6-foot waves than in 2-foot waves of the same frequency. Likewise, a C struck on a piano vibrates at a specific frequency, and the same C played on a tuba vibrates at the same frequency, but with a much higher volume, the musical equivalent of amplitude. In the human aura, frequency is determined by focus and amplitude by emotion. The focus comes from the attention of Kane, Ku, and Lono, and the emotion comes from intentional responses and habitual reactions to your inner and outer environments. Putting this all together, it means that the Ku is influenced by the strongest, nearest, most resonant field. If you walk into a room of people in a state of potential anger, meaning there are things in your life that anger you, but you are not presently feeling that anger, and there is a person in the room who is currently very angry but not showing it openly, it is likely that you will start feeling increasingly irritated and angry without knowing why. If the other person is angry about something which would also make you angry, the effect on you will probably be greater. This is field strength, nearness, and resonance at work. If you have a subconscious habit of avoiding anger, then the field effect will probably influence you to subconsciously suppress your emotions by tightening your muscles, and the longer you stay in the room, the more ill or drained you will feel. It is important to realize that the other person did not drain you or make you ill. Your reactions did. No one can drain you of energy, because energy is infinite, and so are you. If you feel drained in someone's presence, your Ku is just reacting to something about them you don't like. In the same situation, if you were to enter the room in a strong state of happiness, you would have a softening, healing effect on the angry person. It is not just people who can influence your emotions. Physical environments can too. A little bit of stress carried into a highly energetic environment, like an air-conditioned office or a great pyramid, can be amplified into a large amount of stress, accompanied by anger or fear, depending on your habitual reactions to stress. And memories stored in the Ku of the place could add to your reaction even more. In Egypt, once I visited a small temple of Isis on an island in the Nile at the end of a long, tiring day. As our party approached the inner sanctum, one of the women, a very sensitive type not given to freely expressing her emotions, fainted dead away at the entrance. Later, she said she felt overwhelmed by a sense of anger. The closer I got, the more angry I began to feel, so that by the time I reached the entrance, I felt outraged, and memories not my own were coming up about desecrations in the temple. With great effort, I went inside the chamber and tried to harmonize it, but I was no longer in a suitable state to do that. Curiously, after taking care of the woman, no one else went into the chamber. It looked like they weren't interested in it, but it was probably a Ku response. Just before getting back into the boat to leave, I found a 4-inch quartz crystal in the sand and realized the island must have an abundance of them, which would also add to the energy. Even so, It took a lot of conscious de-stressing and reprogramming before I could get back to my normal state. If I'd come to the island in a happy, relaxed state, my experience would have been amplified in a different way. Either I would have actively explored the place with an increasing interest, or I might have become euphoric and tuned into whatever happy memories the place had. The practical knowledge to be gained from the story is that, while you do create all of your emotions, the intensity of those emotions may be influenced by someone or something in your environment. Rather than waste time trying to figure out why you are having the emotion then, the smart thing is to go ahead and do something about it.
Every creature has a weakness.
If you like the experience, enjoy it. If you don't, here are some techniques to consider. The white light of protection. Where fear reigns, conflict follows. In a world governed by so much fear, it is not surprising that even metaphysical techniques arise that are based on defense and attack. Perhaps the most common one found around the world is the white light of protection, as it is often called. It's a beautiful concept, but its application leaves a lot to be desired. In its simplest form, it consists of imagining yourself surrounded by a white or clear light that protects you from all harm, either emanating from your own spirit or given to you by a spiritual being. I was told of a good application of this by one of my students. He was living in New York City in the 60s, and one of his friends was a lovely young woman who usually wore just a thin cotton shift and wandered around the roughest parts of town free as a bird. He and others tried to warn her of the dangers, but she just smiled and said her light would protect her. One time he followed her just in case, and was amazed to see hardened men of the street consistently treat her with courtesy and kindness. The light removed her fear, and they responded to the lack of fear and the presence of love. All too often, however, the use of the white light reinforces fear, and worse. When this happens, it comes from the emphasis on protection rather than trust. In such cases, it is used like a fence or a barrier that keeps the source of fear away and apart, and therefore it doesn't get rid of the fear at all. Actually, each time it is used this way, it reinforces the fear by creating a habit of fearing. If you put a white light of protection around yourself, your family and friends, your house and your car, and then trust that everything is taken care of, it will work well for you. But if you use the same light with a focus on what it is protecting you from, you will wear yourself out with making the light stronger and stronger, and will start attracting that which you fear. The worst and most abominable use of the light is sometimes even taught by well-meaning metaphysical teachers who are too steeped in fear to know what they are doing. In these instances, the light is used not just as a shield of protection, but as a reflector or mirror to send negativity back to its source. The assumption is that any negativity you feel has been purposely sent to you by a meanie who deserves to get back what they sent. While psychic battles are not impossible, they are extremely rare, because so few people in the world are smart enough to know how to really engage in them, and stupid enough at the same time to do it. Remember that the coup takes everything personally. The assumption in this system is that any negativity you feel is your reaction to your spiritual and physical environment, regardless of whether any particular person is angry at you or wishes you harm. To use the light to send harm to another, even if you think you are just reflecting what has come your way, is to engage in black magic. The white light of protection is most useful as a first aid mind shield for someone so stuck in fear that nothing else will make them feel safer. Once a minimum state of confidence has been reached, however, it's time to move on to something more advanced and beneficial. The love light of La'akea. La'akea is a Hawaiian idiom meaning sacred light, referring to the good things represented by daylight, such as sunshine, knowledge, and happiness. It is also used in shaman practice to mean an aura charged with sunshine, knowledge, and happiness. The technique is similar to that of the white light described, except that it is used for healing and harmony. To clarify the distinction, we'll call it the love light. Drawing on the power within you, you'll use your own mind to imagine yourself surrounded by and filled with a love light. We call this turning on the light. Don't let the emphasis on light bother you, though. You can imagine colors, sounds, and feelings if you prefer. My own love light is usually filled with colors, symbols, patterns, music, and soft or tingly sensations, depending on the effect I want. As you turn on the light, you also charge the light by generating a positive emotion. A simple appreciation of something beautiful will do this, or you could go for a stronger emotion. The first assumption is that the love light exists. The second one is that it will extend outward or beam toward any area of your focus. The third assumption is that it will follow your instructions. Here are some suggestions for using it. 1. Start each day by turning on the love light and extending it throughout your immediate environment. Speak to the love light. Everything is alive, aware, and responsive. And give it the instruction, mentally or aloud, harmonize this place. 2. Use the love light throughout the day with different people, places, and situations in the same way. 3. Whenever you experience physical or emotional distress, turn on the love light and say, harmonize the energies around me. 4. If you are having a difficult relationship with someone, extend the love light to include that person, no matter where they are, and say, harmonize the energies between us, or harmonize our fields. 5. If you want to protect family, friends, or property, imagine them surrounded by the love light and say to it, keep this person, place, or thing in peace and harmony. 6. If you want to use the love light for distant healing, practice surrounding yourself with a light in different colors, or symbols for the colors, with a different instruction for each. If you already have a color system you like, use it, but here is the one we use. White/clear, enlighten, used in healing to help increase self-knowledge and connection with a higher self, also when no other color seems appropriate. Red/pink, clear, used to help remove mental and physical tension and limitations, good for increasing group rapport. Orange/peach, focus, helps to focus attention and energy. Yellow, center, helps to relieve worry, resentment, and guilt. Helps remove procrastination, increase persistence, and stimulate enjoyment of the present moment. Green, bless, helps to increase self-esteem, appreciation, friendship, love, and happiness. Blue, empower, helps to increase spiritual and physical strength, self-confidence, and inner authority. Violet, assist, helps to establish spiritual and physical harmony, attunement with purpose and prosperity, alignment with others for common goals. In addition, if you wish, black, absorb, can be used to absorb and transform negativity. Gray, neutralize, can be used to neutralize excess of any kind, and a rainbow can be used as an alternative to white. After you've practiced with the colors on yourself and gotten the feel of them, use them with other people, places, and things you care for, as in number 5. 7. For an especially intensive form of distant healing with a love light, select a small object, perhaps a coin, a crystal, or a pebble, to represent a person or place you want to assist with a healing. Place this in your left hand. Next, take one of the Shaman Stones or another object of a color from the list in number 6 and place that in your right hand. Then surround yourself with a love light of the same color as the object in your right hand, and do Kahi on both hands with deep breathing as you give the appropriate instruction. Here, your focus is threefold, on both hands and on the love light. You don't have to focus on an image of the person, because the symbol for the person is in your hand. The physical objects help to involve the energies and attention of the coup in the process. At some point, you will get a signal to stop. This may come as a deep sigh, as an internal impulse, or a physical sensation such as tingling or tiredness. When it comes, it's like a signal from the other person's coup that it has received enough for the time being. Complete the process by finishing with a word or phrase like, "It is done," "Thank you," or the Hawaiian "amama," roughly equivalent to "so be it." May you always bless and be blessed by the light of love. The sixth adventure,
Pace out the halls
changing
of
the
your
world
lineage
with
once
shaman
familiar.
dreaming.
Now,
Aya ke ola I Kahiki. Health and prosperity are in Kahiki, a place in the inner world. This chapter is going to introduce you to the power of shamanic dreaming for changing the world. It's going to start out with ways to use dreams very close to our outer world, and then move gradually into deeper and deeper dreaming until you will be able to understand
finding
and
the stuff
use
is
the
only the
ultimate
first
shaman
test.
dream, the
Now it
vision
must be
quest.
carried home.
In traditional Hawaiian culture, the universe is divided into Po and A'o. Po is the inner dream, the unseen realities which give birth to this outer dream of A'o. Because Po refers to that which is unseen, the realm of experience which Westerners might call mind or spirit, the same word is used to mean night, the time of darkness. For the poetic Hawaiians of old, nighttime, or Po, became a symbol of the inner world, and daytime, A'o, became a symbol for the outer expression of the inner world, which is why A'o also means teaching and learning. The moment of sunset was the beginning of a new day, and dawn was the beginning of the manifestation of all the creativity that had taken place during the night. The West itself became a symbol for Po, which confused a lot of early explorers, and continues to confuse anthropologists. Whenever Polynesians said they came from the West, they didn't mean Asia, they meant Po, the realm of spirit. The significance of all this is to emphasize the shamanic idea that what we experience as outer reality is the expression or reflection of an inner reality, and that one of the most effective ways to change the outer reality, the dream of life, is to change the inner reality, or dream of spirit.
Confidence surges
The
as the
three
enemy
regions
crumbles.
of Po. Just as this outer world has its three regions of land, sea,
Their
and sky,
formation is
so does the
broken.
inner world have its three
Maintain the
regions,
offensive.
at least in Hawaiian shamanic thought. These are Lani Keha, Kahiki, and Milu. Lani Keha is the upper world in the unseen realm.
Brought low
It
and
is where
driven
God,
into the
angels,
mud.
and saints exist, where gods and goddesses live and play, where great heroes, heroines, and myths abound. In your own night dreams, you may have been there on occasion when you experienced big, important, or surreal dreams. Shamans go there primarily for inspiration, as Maui did to find the secrets of fire and cultivation. Kahiki, the middle world, is the inner region that is most like this outer reality. Most of your night dreams and daydreams take place in Kahiki. If this word sounds a lot like Tahiti, it's because they are the same word in different dialects. It was quite common in Polynesia to name outer world places after inner world places. Kahiki in Hawaiian means foreign, as well as the power to do something. In Tahitian, the word Tahiti means to transplant and to cross over. In addition to anything else, these meanings have to do with using the dreams of Kahiki to make changes in this world. The third region is Milu, the underworld. This is the place of nightmares and challenges, and the place where shamans often go on a vision quest for recovering lost power. We'll start our process by working in Kahiki with the dreams you have at night.
Well
Mo'ike,
struck.
the art of interpreting dreams. This is going to be short, sweet, and simple. You are the best interpreter of your dreams. And with the method I'm about to share, you can bypass books with interpretation lists, time-consuming
Press
association
disadvantage.
processes,
Give
and
them no
thematic analyses. You can go straight to the real meaning of your dreams because of the corollary to the fifth principle that says, everything is alive, aware, and responsive. Everything includes all of the characters and objects in your dreams, as well as the dreams themselves. The way to interpret a dream is to recall it while you are relaxed and awake, and speak directly to any of the characters and objects in the dream, asking, "What are you doing here? What do you represent or symbolize?" In most cases, the person, animal, or object will talk back to you and give you the information you want. To speak to the dream as a whole, imagine it as a ball or globe. If you have a bit of subconscious stress about the matter, there may be some resistance to answering you, and you may have to be extra nice and persuasive, or highly assertive, depending on your own personality. Should there be no response at all, you then apply the technique of inventive interpretation. This means you ask the question and then consciously make a response as if you were speaking for the character or object.
Hope blossoms.
Sounds weird, I know, but it works because you cannot make up a response in that moment that isn't valid. Due to the second principle corollary, everything is connected. After a few applications of inventive interpretation, you will find spontaneous responses coming easier. As a note of interest, memories of outer world experiences can be treated just like dreams for interpretation. Once, while in Malibu, I was having lunch with a friend talking about our transformative work. A man at the next table overheard us and invited us to a presentation he said would be of great interest to both of us. My friend couldn't make it, but I went and quickly wondered what on earth I was doing there. It was so flaky that I left early, even though another friend was there whom I hadn't seen in a long time. The presentation was about a project to create a center that would cost $22 million. Part of the money was for an immense dome to be partly sunk in the earth for some obscure reason. Another part was to fund an intelligent computer system, relying on technology that hadn't been invented yet. And still another part was for supporting inventions like a device to fit around your nose and automatically blow gusts of air in alternate nostrils to simulate a yogic practice. And those were the best parts. After I left, I was confused and upset because I trust my intuition and guidance to lead me to situations that serve my intended purposes, and this experience didn't seem to fit. My choice was to start doubting myself or to trust more. So I trusted more and treated the experience like a dream, asking the participants for interpretations. As it turned out, part of the reason for my being there was to stimulate the other friend in a positive way, and part of it was to make me aware, through exaggeration, of my concerns for the possibly flaky appearance of my own projects at the time. Since all life is a dream, all memories can be treated as dreams. Dream change. One of the most powerfully effective ways to use night dreams is to change them with your imagination. Dreams are real experiences in another dimension, but like all real experiences, they are the effects of belief structures or habit patterns. In that way, they are like languages, which are based on structures and patterns. Even with the most flexible grammatical structure and abundant vocabulary, a language can only express what the mind that produces it has to say. So too, the inner and outer dream environments can only express what the mind that produces them thinks. And just as changing language by saying something a different way can change one's mind and thereby one's experience, so changing the dream environment can change all the dream experiences produced by a particular mind. In practical terms, this means that if you change a dream, you also restructure the patterns that gave rise to it, and you automatically change any other dreams that arose from the same patterns. You can heal the outer world by healing the inner world. While it is possible, with enough motivation, to learn how to wake up within an ongoing dream, that isn't necessary in order to get the benefits of dream change. This is because memories retain the same patterns as the original dream, modified by any changes of mind you may have had since having the dream.
Back to the pit.
So for healing purposes, changing the memory of the dream is as good as changing a dream in progress. 3 ways to change a dream, or the memory of a dream, are by changing your reaction in the dream, allowing the dream to continue, or changing the events of the dream. Each of these is most beneficial to recurring or single dreams of fear, anger, injury, or frustration. These changes are done in the realm of Kahiki. Changing your reaction means to consciously choose to respond differently to what's happening. In one of my workshops, a woman recalled a recurring dream in which she was being chased by a fire-breathing dragon. In the original dream, she ran as if in slow motion, and the dragon was always just about to pounce on her when she woke up. In class, she put her attention on a moment just before the usual wake-up point, and imagined herself stopping, turning around, and shouting, "Why are you chasing me?" To her surprise, the dragon stopped, looked confused, and said, "I'm not chasing you, I'm following you." The result in her life was a reduction of fear and an increase in self-confidence. Allowing the dream to continue means recalling the dream and keeping your conscious attention focused on it past the usual wake-up point. Some dreams are more suitable for this than others, but there will always be a positive resolution if this change technique is followed long enough. In an early workshop, a student recalled a recurring dream in which he drove a car into a parking garage where another car was waiting for him, driven by his mother, as he found out through the interpretive process. Then both cars raced up the spiral ramps of the garage to the top floor, where his mother's car stopped and his shot off into space. This was the point at which he always used to wake up in fear. In class, he re-experienced the whole dream again, with feelings of fear, he said later, until his car flew off the top ramp. Then he stayed with the dream and let it continue by itself. His car kept on flying over the city and gently landed on the freeway at the other end. As the car drove off, he could see the license plate, which said, "Life goes on." His effect was an improvement in his relationship with his mother and a lessening of his fear of death. Changing the events of a dream is a form of direct, creative intervention which tends to instill a strong sense of self-confidence and self-esteem. If these are quite low to begin with, this process may have to be repeated with different parts of a dream over a period of time. One woman who was helped a lot by this technique worked on the same dream for about 6 months. Usually, however, a one-time intervention is all that is needed. To give an example of how creative intervention can also lead to spontaneous change, I'll relate my helicopter dream. This one started out with me as a passenger in a helicopter, already unusual for me, which took off but couldn't go very high because there were power lines in the way. I don't need any interpretation for that, thank you. The rest of the dream was a frustrating ride of ineffective hopping until I woke up. Right after waking up, I went back into the dream at the beginning, where I stopped the pilot before the helicopter took off, went around to the other side, and sat in the pilot's seat myself. Taking the controls, I lifted the copter, found a space between 2 power lines, and zoomed straight up. It felt wonderful. Then I found myself, without intending it, flying over the United States, with all the states nicely bordered. Next, to my delight and astonishment, the sky was suddenly filled with helicopters being flown by all the other shamans I had trained, and they began dumping copies of my booklet, The Aloha Spirit, all over the country. This was followed in the outer dream of life by a rapid increase in the number of people I was reaching. Almost invariably, after I teach how to do dream change, someone will express concern over changing the dream before you know what it means, or what the lesson is, and sometimes concern that such a change is tantamount to suppressing what the dream is intended to convey. To any of you with these fears, let me say this: the inner world isn't that much different from the outer world. If you break your arm in the outer world, you don't sit there and agonize over the meaning of the event, or leave the arm broken so you'll be sure to remember the lesson involved. You fix it fast. The first message is very clear. It's, "Hey, your arm's broken." And the second message, given by the pain and discomfort, is just as clear. It's, "Do something about it now." Of course, you can also look for other meanings or examine what kind of thinking led to your injury, if that seems important. It might be, if this were the 3rd time you've broken your arm in the past year, but the time to do that is after you've taken steps to heal it. The same applies to inner dreams of fear and anger, pain and hurt. Heal them first. As for suppression, I always recommend full conscious acknowledgement of the dream as it is before you change it. Then you can heal out of love with full conscious sensory involvement. If you try to quickly change anything you don't like without really paying attention to it, you are probably acting out of fear, and the results won't be as good. Daydreaming your cares away. It is a little known or appreciated fact that we dream inner dreams 24 hours a day. It is not just at night that inner dreams happen.
To us.
Dreams happen all the time, and we just tune into them from
hold.
time to time. In our society, tuning into dreams is highly discouraged among both children and adults, although it is tolerated, barely, among poets, novelists, and people on vacation, as long as they don't do it too much. Passive daydreamers, those who just allow their minds to drift to whatever comes up, are considered idlers. And active daydreamers, those who creatively fantasize, are considered escapists unless they get paid for it. I want to teach you to use both passive and active daydreaming for healing yourself and others. The process we'll use takes place in Kahiki, and is a logical extension of all 7 shaman principles. We begin by assuming that everything dreams, not just people. Then, we assume that we can tune into these dreams, at least our translated version of them, by focusing our attention on a particular object with the intent to know its dream. We next assume that whatever comes into our mind from that moment until we stop focusing is the dream of what we are focusing on. Finally, we assume that by changing such a dream in the same way that we change night dreams, we can get the same kind of healing results, sometimes immediately. In my workshops, people have had many immediate healings, from the disappearance of flu symptoms to pain relief and reductions in tumor size. Complete healings aren't always immediate, but there are almost always some immediate benefits. Let me give some examples that will make the process more clear. In one case, I was in a restaurant having coffee. The waitress was in a foul mood, not speaking to anyone, not refilling their cups, and spilling food when she served it. I tuned into her current dream, which I imagined was occurring right over her head. What I saw was a bleak landscape with gray clouds above it. So in creative fantasy, I caused the clouds to rain and then part to let the sun through, caused flowers to sprout up, and caused birds, bees, and butterflies to enter the picture. I was having a great time when she suddenly left and went into the kitchen where she stayed for 5 full minutes. When she came back out, she was completely changed. She smiled at everyone and filled their cups carefully, said hello to a new customer, and generally seemed happier. Now what I didn't cause the change, it just helped it happen. Changing her dream as I perceived it was like sending her coup a new idea by intuition, and the new idea was so nice that her coup decided to use it to make a change of its own. Note also that there was no invasion of her mind or her privacy. I only picked up what she was broadcasting, translated it into a form I could understand, and beamed back a healing message for her to use or not use.
Strong drink, a game
We
of
can do
chance,
this for other people,
and
and we
companionship.
can also do this for
The
ourselves.
rush of life.
Using the assumptions given, try saying that every part of your body is now having its own dream, in addition to any dreams you as a whole may be having. You can make practical use of this technique by tuning in, putting your attention on a part of your body which may be sick, weak, or not functioning as well as you'd like. Most people find that it helps to close your eyes, but you can do it with your eyes open if you prefer. The body part can be anything you can name as a body part, like your heart, a hand, or a shoulder. First, be passive and let the dream form on its own. It may be expressed as sight, sound, feelings, or any combination, and it may be wild and fantastic, or very mundane and ordinary. Even if the only thing that comes to mind is housework or work at the office you still have to do, treat that as the dream. Once the dream is formed, go in consciously and change it in some way. If the dream is scary and unpleasant, it won't be hard to think of something to do. But even if the dream seems perfect in every way, change it for the better. If the body part isn't as healthy as you'd like it to be, perfection can be a mask, and any change will start a healing. In making your changes, you'll get the best results if you use all your senses. Continue as long as you like, or until you can feel a physical response in your body. Since everything is dreaming, you can tune into and change the dream of a tree, a home, a machine, a group, a nation, or a planet if you wish. The key to success is dreaming a new dream so pleasurable to the coup of the object of your attention that it will want to change. That is where the development of your dreaming skill as an urban shaman comes in. Haipule, bringing a new dream into being. One way to change the dream of the outer world is to create a new dream in Kahiki to replace it. Haipule is a very ancient, tried-and-true process for doing that. It can take many forms, and the form given here is designed for the purpose of this book. A brief examination of this very important word